Good morning. I very much like vlogs, and that kind of does mean it's quite unstructured, like take today for example. I don't actually know what I'm going to talk about yet, and I suppose that's one of the things I quite like about vlogs because it makes it very unpredictable. There is the alternative way, and that's to do a scripted type video. I like to do that a little bit, but I also like to show the authentic ideas and feelings that people have, and that means not scripting. We're going to take Jasper to a soft play now, I think, and get him worn out a little bit, and then head on home. We've had some rain last night, so it'll be interesting to know if my number plate is still stuck down securely or not. I do think command strips are brilliant, but I just don't know how well they handle the wet, because I've never used them outside before. Righty.
We're going to a soft
Oh, you need to be plugged in.
We're going to a soft play.
Can you plug it
Yep,
in?
I know. And looking good on the number plate front. Still stuck down. I still have no idea what I'm going to be talking about today.
Come on, it's freezing though.
Yeah, gotta confess, I did just make my family wait for 15 seconds while I got back into the car in order to take a shot of me opening the door. Because, you know, that's the kind of quintessential James Cook vlog shot, isn't it? Opening the car door. Actually, no, it just makes it really easy to go from one place to another and sort of make it feel like you've moved. If you just cut from me talking with one background to me talking with another, it doesn't work properly. Good news is I've worked out what I'm going to talk about today. Bit of phone research. So apparently Tesla's been told to stop listing Model 3 in Germany with gas savings included in the price that it displays most prominently. And I want to talk about that, the gas savings. However, first we're going to have lunch, and it turns out so it's working. Sophie and Jasper just going to do a quick bit of emergency shopping for next week, and I'm going to talk about the terrible problem with petrol and diesel prices. You see, everyone knows that EVs are expensive up front. I think the reality is, right, your fuel is a monthly payment, and buying the car, if you buy it outright right at the beginning, that's obviously a lump sum right there. So it's very difficult to discount from that the total cost of fuel, because it depends how long you keep the car for and how many miles you do. There are so many different variables that add into that it's only ever going to be an extremely rough indication, and there's no way you could compare that price to something else, so it's tricky. However, I think a lot of people underestimate or don't have any clue about how much it actually costs to drive their petrol or diesel car on a per 100-mile basis. So what I would probably do if I was going to be selling a Model 3, for example, in Germany, is I would be quite tempted to say, well, this car is 35,000 euros or however many it is. A typical car, for example, an Audi A4 or an A3, I don't know, you pick a decent comparison vehicle with a similar sort of purchase price and similar sorts of specs, and then you say, well, if you buy this and you do 1,000 miles a month, then you will spend this much at the average petrol price, and you've got to put a bunch of caveats in there. But I think you can do a sort of illustrative example of how much people spend every month on fuel. And that becomes especially important if you're not going to buy the vehicle outright. So Soph is looking at getting a new electric vehicle, as I said, well, a new car. I'm pushing her to try and get a new electric vehicle. She's very interested in the Audi e-tron, principally because she's found quite a good lease hire deal. And lease hire is a good example, or PCP, or anything where you're paying monthly. If you're paying for the car on a month by month basis, then I do think it makes a lot of sense to think in terms of how much you spend on fuel normally and then basically discount most of that. So for example, for Soph, right, at the moment she's still paying £200 a month for her Merc. She's got some old, finance been on there forever and just slowly paying it off. She reckons she spends about £400 a month on fuel. I don't think it's that much. That sounds insanely high. I know she does about 90 miles a day round trip to work, but still, that is a lot of money. So let's call it 300, right? That gives you a total budget of 500 a month, which is, I think she's found this e-tron at 600 a month or something. There's only an extra 100 quid, and you just swapped a 7-year-old C-Class Merc that was £32,000 new for a £77,000 4x4. I mean, it sounds like an absolute no-brainer for an extra £100 a month. Oh, wow. But if you didn't realise that it's how much you're spending on fuel that makes that difference, and actually that 600 a month I think was for 12,000 miles, so she will obviously do more than that, I think about 25,000 over the year. Therefore there would be excess mileage to pay, which I kind of work out would probably be an extra, I did work it out and now I've forgotten. Ooh, I think it was something like an extra £100 a month. But still, I mean, we're still comparing two vastly different cars in terms of their capabilities and luxury and the general fact that one of them is brand new and the other one is really not. So I suppose what I'm building up to here is that I think it is perfectly reasonable to try and draw people's attention to that monthly fuel bill that will be replaced by a much, much smaller increase in their electricity bill, because it is a real genuine saving. It makes a big difference to how you evaluate whether it is worth paying a bit extra for an electric car or not. And I think that's one of the problems with a plug-in hybrid. You pay more for the vehicle, but if you do lots and lots of miles, you'll tend to do those on longer journeys, so you won't see that much fuel benefit. You'll still spend quite a lot on fuel. And if you just do loads and loads of really small diddly journeys, which is when you can just do it all on electricity, well, great, you're not spending any fuel, but you're also not doing a lot of miles, so you're not saving as much. When you're deciding whether it's worth getting an EV or a petrol car or a diesel or a plug-in hybrid or a self-charging hybrid, whatever, you need to have a clear picture of what you're going to save. And I have been blown away with how much money I have saved already. I mean, Soph's Merc is already a substantially more expensive car than my Tesla, even though my Tesla cost more than twice as much as her car when it was new, and I've done more miles to boot. So yeah, there are lots of savings to be had, and I think it is probably fine for manufacturers to try and highlight those savings to people who might not necessarily know that they're there. I mean, they will if they take the plunge and buy an EV on faith, then they will quickly find out that the savings are real and they will benefit from them. But a lot of people are put off taking the plunge because of that initial purchase price. If you buy it brand new and you keep it, or you pay it on PCP and then you make the balloon payment when you come to the end of the PCP period, or you refinance so you keep paying monthly, with an EV, if it's not going to suffer from those, that classic thing that kills petrol and diesel cars, then it has the potential, I think, to be a car you can keep for a lot longer, and it will remain relatively trouble-free, hopefully, touch wood. So, like, for example, Soph's Merc, the one we've just been talking about, well, I did say we were paying £200 a month, and we are, but now it needs a new turbo. My understanding is that was probably going to be around £1,000 or something. Let's just make the maths easy and call it 1,200. So it's not really 200 a month this year. Because of Soph's broken turbo, it's actually 300 a month this year. Next year, hopefully it would be £200 a month, but equally it might be something else that breaks. Maybe some other bit of the exhaust is gone next year, and then breaks discs and pads, all the rest of it. That happens as well quite regularly, and certainly a lot more regularly in a petrol or diesel than it does in any kind of EV or even a hybrid to some extent, because of that regen braking. I suppose my advice would be to not be put off by the purchase price of EVs, and to try and peg the costs to where you know what's right for your situation. I do a lot of miles in my car. That's why this Tesla is getting so cheap. The screenshot I saw on this article, which sort of prompted me to want to talk about this, it was quite clear that although Tesla did have the little asterisks saying, well, this isn't what you pay, you actually pay this, but there are these discounts, you had to kind of find that information, and it did make it seem like it was only going to cost 26,000 euros to get a brand spanking new Model 3, which seems a little misleading. And I think that kind of misleading is actually counterproductive for selling vehicles or selling EVs especially. It's a bit like the whole sort of range driving cycle thing where you go in and you're like, how far does this EV go? And they sit back and 125 miles on a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's what I was told when I bought my first gen Nissan Leaf. They were like, yeah, this will do 120 miles. Yeah, whatever. Real world driving, it did 80 miles maximum. You wouldn't get that in winter, Max. That's just basically a bold-faced lie. And even though I did have a pretty strong indication that would be the case, I still remember driving it home from the dealership, and it was about 20 miles, 25 miles to get home down the motorway. As I drove it back, I was like, wow, I've like used most of the battery just to get home on this one little journey. Oh, what have I done? This was the days before quick chargers, and it was like a much smaller battery EV than obviously this Tesla or most of the modern ones you can get these days. But still, just puts people off, I think, or it leaves a kind of slightly sour taste in the mouth. Perhaps that's a better way of putting it. Righty, it's time for us to head home. As soon as Soph and Jasper get back, which hopefully will be any second now.
What are these called? That was.
Jasper, go round, chicken. As you can see, we're home. I was going to sit down, but it's going to prove tricky. I don't know why I'm sitting down, because this video is over. Remember to subscribe and like, and I will see you in the next episode of my vlog. Bye! No, we're not done yet. There's one more thing. I saw an I-Pace. First time I've ever seen an I-Pace on the road, like driving around. That was way cool. So I'm pleased to see they're actually selling them, and I hope the I-Pace does really well, because I really liked it. I think it's a great car. I wonder if they tell you how much it costs after having deducted fuel savings.